Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of my crazy story. Over the next 24 minutes, I will attempt to explain to you how my crazy story started, where the cray began. It's very interesting, hopefully, or maybe very boring. I don't know, but we're going to find out either way, or I'm going to find out because I'm going to tell you. I was born on a dark and stormy night. Actually, I'm not sure what the weather was like, but let's just say for sake of narration. And there's a song that was written about me. It's something about in West Philadelphia being born in something about that, which may or may not be true. I'm not going to tell you for sure where I was actually born and raised, but I will tell you there was a time that I was living only about 1 mile away from the Will Smith, so that should give you some clues. And I actually never met him because by the time I found out I was living this close, he was living much farther away in some other place, probably Miami or something where he had multiple mansions, $100,000 cars, stuff like that. But I happened to meet his next door neighbor, who was quite a bit younger than him, and she told me the story about how when he first broke out as a teenager, she was a little girl in kindergarten, and she literally brought him to her kindergarten for show and tell to show my next door neighbor is the Fresh Prince. And now he didn't have his TV show yet. He was just getting big in the neighborhood. He had just started to do parties and stuff like that, but he was pretty well known in the certain parts of the city. So anyway, that was kind of fun. Now, this particular neighbor also wanted to be a rap star, and I guess she was talented in her own right. She got together a bunch of friends, and they did some instruments and stuff, and she asked me to join. True story. And I said, okay. And at the time, I had many different skills. I could make pasta pretty well, and I was very good at reading maps on MapQuest. But what could I do to help her? Well, I played some guitar, so I said I will play acoustic guitar, and that'll give your rap career a little bit of live instrumentation. It's not just all going to be sampling and computer music. So that was kind of fun. So for a minute I played in her band, and then I was like, you know what, this isn't for me. We're just in her basement rehearsing all the time, and I said, you know what, I got other stuff to do. So I decided to quit, and for better or for worse, she went on to become very popular in the small but very substantial country of Japan. Totally telling the truth here. This young lady, I'm still friends with her today. She's pretty cool. She lives in the States, but she tours Japan about 4 months out of the year because for years and years afterwards, she's like a cult sensation there, her little rap group. So that was kind of fun. Not for me, but it's fun to know that was something. But let's back up. When I was a wee little lad, my father was not into sports. What is that? Some kind of a flat basketball or something. But he was, let's do some more sports just to show. Not into that, not into that. Thank God, not into golf. But he was very artistic. Actually, he was an art teacher. He still is an art teacher. And so I became somebody who was drawing while I was still in diapers before I could even speak. I was doodling and drawing. My earliest memory is telling my kindergarten teacher that there's a better way to draw stick figures than the way that she was doing. And I was actually 4 years old. I was like shocked that a grown-up would be drawing stick figures because obviously all you have to do is add some extra lines and your stick figure turns into a non-stick figure. with almost no effort at all. And she found that probably amusing at the time. My father went on to enroll me at this Fleischer Arts community in Philadelphia, where it was like an endowment, so poor kids could go there for free, and we weren't terribly poor, but anyway, it was good for me. And at the that marker's not working. At the ripe old age of 6, I was pretty proud that I won the award for the 5 to 7-year-olds in that year's art stuff award. And I remember it was pretty funny. One of my biggest things was pottery, which is funny because I wouldn't come back to that for like another 17 years. But I won the award, and they gave me all these presents wrapped up, all these gift-wrapped presents. Some were flat, some were cube, some were round or elongated, like all these different shapes. There was like 7 of them, all these presents with bows. And I, being a 6-year-old, I held them, and I said, I didn't have 3 arms. That arm came around there. And I said, oh my gosh, these are heavy. I said, Mom, Dad, I think this is gold. Now, I was 6 years old, and I had heard that awards sometimes come in silver or gold. And I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I knew I had won an award, and I knew I was given these boxes that were gift wrapped, and I knew to my little arms, they felt very heavy. So I was super excited until I unwrapped them and found that my award was some new art supplies. In which case, I was not the least bit disappointed. And I was like, what? I thought I was going to be rich. I don't know how I thought a school for poor kids would be giving out gold and silver, but, it made sense to me. And I was like, what? I don't need art supplies. I have art supplies. How did you think I won this award in the first place? But my parents were like, you should be thankful, and you should have good attitude. And actually, my dad is quite tall, so he doesn't look as squatty as I'm making him look here. But I'm trying to keep up with I tend to talk a lot faster than I draw. I thought about drawing this ahead of time and then narrating it later, but that would require taking out my laptop and setting that all up again to do the better editing that I used to do. Whereas this is just, I can release this tonight and you guys will get to watch it right away, so that's kind of fun. Anyway, so my dad said, you need to knock that off and be thankful. And my mom said, yes, same thing. And she didn't have a bigger head. That's just... Anyway. So they told me I need to be thankful. And I was like, fine, whatever. Thanks for the art supplies, guys. I guess I'll be making more art. And that's what I did. And I made a lot of art. Around, I would say, age 12, I was done with art, and I decided that I wanted to do music. I wanted to be in a band, which is funny because starting at age 6, my parents forced me to take piano lessons, bribed me, begged me, punished me. I would never practice. I was terrible. I was so, but despite their best efforts, trying 5 or 6 different teachers, between the ages of 6 and 10, I happened to pick up maybe 1.5 years of solid piano, so I knew some theory and stuff. And I finally convinced them around age 10 to let me quit, and they had had enough, so they were like, fine, we'll let you quit. And then from age 10 to age 12, I did whatever 10 to 12-year-olds do. I was kind of a bookworm. I read a lot of books for some reason. I'm not too proud of that. But anyway, around age 12, I decided I wanted to be a rock star and have a band and be famous. And I said, Mom and Dad, why did you make me quit the piano because now I have to go back and learn piano because I have to be an awesome rock star. And so after that, I started teaching myself, and I never really got good at sight reading, which to this day I'm very not happy about because I would love to sight read. I can kind of read the notes, sounding them out really slowly like a kindergartner trying to read their first Dr. Seuss book, but, you know. So I taught myself to play by ear, and I got fairly good. I knew the, oh, was that down there the whole time? You didn't see that? Sorry about that. I got pretty good at, what's it called? Chords and theory and basic stuff, and so I took it from there, taught myself some more stuff, some whatever nonsense. And then around age 13, whoops, where are we? Around age 13, my voice was changing and cracking and everything, so I attempted to sing, and that didn't come out very well. So then, you know, hip-hop was getting big at that time. And so I said, I'm going to make a hip-hop album. So started doing that, and I managed to save up a ton of money and buy myself a synthesizer that had built-in recording stuff, and I taught myself all the instruments, and I started laying bass lines and drum beats and all that junk, and I what's it called? And I put together this little thing, got a bunch of friends to sing, and I actually rented a studio for recording time for a little bit. It was pretty crazy for a, by that time, 15-year-old. And then when I was 16, actually when I was 17, I finished it up, but when I was 16, I met these guys who played guitar, and they were super cool, and they were like still some of my best friends, including Irish John, who I made a stone for in a recent video, a necklace. And I was like, playing guitar is the coolest thing ever. And because I had all the piano theory, I took little stickies and stuck them all over under the fretboard so I could memorize all the notes. And I taught myself to play guitar that year. And I never got incredibly polished at it. My style was so clunky that Irish John used to make fun of me and bang on the strings like a crazy person on drugs, which is awesome because that just made me proud. Because I wanted to be like that, and but I learned to bang a little bit on these two, and then I started hanging out in some bands, and what comes with the band if you play guitar is bass, and that thing was a cool thing. It was like guitar with you only have to play one note at a time. Are you kidding me? That is so easy. Granted, I know bass players that is not so easy, but at the time it just seems super fun. And then while you're in a band and you have all those other things, what else are you going to end up bumping into? But this guy, which is pretty awesome because I found I have pretty decent internal rhythm that's actually a lot tighter than the people who are, primary instrument drums. So I banged on that and I picked that up pretty quick. And for some reason, the whole thing about rubbing your belly and touching the top of your head being difficult, I always thought, well, that's not hard. So the coordination came pretty easily with the pedals, the hi-hat, and the kick drum, and the two hands all doing 4 different things at the same time. And so I kind of got a little bit mishmash, jack of all, master of none. The music, I wanted to major in music in college later. I did it for 1 year. I was up against kids who had been studying classical piano since they were age 6, around that time when I could have been started, but I kept fighting my parents. And I couldn't sight read still. And I was with these kids who were virtuosos. So after I hung out for a year in music school, I quit. And my parents are both teachers, so I went to be a teacher. More out of a last resort. I mean, I like kids. I was always a camp counselor, always helping with kids, babysitting, whatever. But teacher is just not the thing I thought I wanted, but I did it to be a responsible adult. And I lasted about 5 years as a teacher. Worked my heart out to try to help those kids. System, public school, Philadelphia, bad. Didn't work out too well. 5 years was all I could take. Barely 5 years. I quit like at least once in the middle of that, and then went back sheepishly because I ran out of money. One of the times I quit, I tried to, what I found was, as I was a teacher, I had more fun doodling on the board than I did, teaching math or reading. Although I did, devote myself to teaching math and reading. But I would illustrate a lot on the board, and the kids seemed to like that. and they seemed to have fun, and pretty soon I was teaching them how to draw. And I'm pretty proud that I worked hard, and I had my kids always scored the highest in reading and math, the two fundamentals when you're elementary. But I also taught them to draw. I taught them a bunch of stuff, and then sometimes I'd do art projects with them, and I sat there one time beating a bracelet with them, and I thought, oh, this is more fun than anything else I've been doing this week. And then it was a beat-up old school in Philadelphia that ended up getting torn down. So the principal said, do anything you want to the room, I don't care. So I started rebuilding the furniture and rearranging stuff, and I started building my own little special chairs for the kids who won an award to sit in where they could read a book. And and then other teachers wanted a special chair. I upholstered it with all this crazy Indian fabric and stuff and made it all funky and hippie and cool. And so then other teachers started hiring me to make them chairs. And then I was doing all this. I started building other furniture for the room. I made this big round table for the kids. And pretty soon I just got so tired of teaching, and I got in a big fight with this one principal once she said, I don't care how good your kids are doing. I don't care how good your scores are. I don't care how well behaved they are. You need to do this curriculum that you're supposed to do. And I was like, I am not going to do the curriculum because my kids are on a certain level that they were given to me because of the way they were taught before, and I have to meet them where they're at, and I'm meeting them where they're at, and I'm catching them up. This curriculum is not built for them. This curriculum is not even a good curriculum. It's not like the one I had as a kid. It's experimental. A lot of it doesn't make sense, and the other kids in all the other classrooms are suffering because they don't get it at all. My kids are super well behaved, better than all the other kids, and super happy because I am teaching them where they're at. And the principal said, I don't care, you're doing the wrong thing, and I'm going to start writing you up. And I said, you know what, I quit. And that was the first time I quit. And I went off and spent 1 year trying to make fancy artistic furniture and sell it. I made a lot of cool furniture. I made some crazy coffee tables and bookshelves with all kinds of intricate designs burned and painted into them. A lot of stuff you might see showing up in jewelry pieces today on videos. But I was terrible at selling. I had no idea where the people with money were, and I would spend like days and weeks on one piece of furniture, so I had to sell it for more than, $50, and I didn't know where the people were who had this kind of money that would make it worth my while. I didn't know how to reach them. I didn't know how to internet market. I didn't know how to go to shows. I didn't know any of that. So after about a year, I sold almost no furniture. I might have sold one or two pieces and barely made my money back on supplies. And so I had to go back to teaching for a while. But eventually, in my quest to build furniture, I started working on this wooden lamp that was made of all these recycled pieces. And I wanted this wooden lamp to get this cool twist where it would be like all the pieces would twist around. And I didn't know anything about the electronics. I'd built this lamp. I had to buy this lamp kit, and I could barely put it together. But anyway, the bottom piece was really cool, but I couldn't get it to do what I wanted with the wood. And I said, let me go back to pottery. And I looked up some ceramic studios because I hadn't done pottery in forever, pretty much since I was a little kid. So I went back and I started learning. I found a pottery studio in the city, and I started doing pottery again, and I immediately started making. I made the lamp. It was okay. I think I still have it. But I really started getting into making these really crazy vases that I developed that were like weird four-sided vases that would bend and twist as they rose up to the top, and then I would paint them all crazy, different colors, and I would carve all kinds of crazy patterns out of them. And I thought, this is going to be my thing. I'm going to be discovered. I'm going to make a lot of money. And so I started taking them to shows, and these are little shows, flea markets even, little craft sales. People didn't have a lot of money, but people did have 20 or 30 bucks. So I started selling these vases for 20, 30, or 40 bucks. And that might seem like, oh, that's great. But some of these vases took me 8 to 10 hours. And then I would let them go for like $28. So that wasn't a great sales schematic to stay alive, but I was making art and I was happy. And I, was sleeping on a couch at friends' houses or going back to live with my parents. I was eating ramen noodles, hot dogs, once in a while turkey hot dogs if I could afford it. And right around that time, I saw one of the teachers at the pottery studio, this lovely lady. I don't quite remember her name, but she was a pretty lady, and she took some clay in her hand and squished it and baked it in the kiln, and she put little holes in it after she squished it, and after it was baked, she put it on earring hooks. And these, seriously, they look just like this. 2 little squishy pieces of clay. Like she just squished them in her hands, gave them holes, and then later on put earring hooks on them. Right? And they sold, I think, for $15 in like 20 minutes. As soon as she put them out on a display, someone else in the studio immediately wanted to buy them. And I looked at that, and I was like, what? Actually, I was like excited, kind of like, what? And the rest is history. Being the industrious person I was, or just being hungry, I ended up making rows and rows and rows of all different shapes of clay beads and pendants. And I started trying all kinds of fancy things. I tried to get fancier and fancier. I tried all different colors and shapes and sizes and patterns. And I was putting earring hooks on them, and I was putting them on cords. And I was literally making hundreds of these things. Teeny, 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 tiny ones for post earrings. Big, giant, medallion-sized pendants. I started making the earrings bigger and bigger and heavier until someone informed me that ears are sensitive and that really hurts, and I could hurt someone's ear. Nobody wanted to wear earrings that weighed 4 pounds. So the earrings were selling the most, and people were loving them. And I started to really actually make decent money for the first time. When I say decent, I mean I could afford ramen noodles, turkey hot dogs, and a couple burgers off the dollar menu. So I said, this is awesome. This is going great. So but I had a problem because not only were the earrings heavy, but okay, so I started making them very thin. And I was selling to a lot of college kids, and they wanted these big, fancy, flashy earrings. And so I had to make them really big, but then they were super heavy, so I had to make them really thin. So what happens when you take clay with melted glass and make it incredibly thin? Well, it's pretty beautiful, but drop it a couple feet and it shatters. That marker's dead. Shatters instantly. Pieces everywhere. Broken pieces. So every time I would set up somewhere to sell, I inevitably would drop 1 or 2 pieces and lose them. A customer once in a while would drop one and it would break and they would feel terrible. Be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I'd be like, no, please, please, it's cool, it's cool. I broke 2 of them an hour ago. Don't worry about it, I swear. And they would end up buying something else anyway because they felt bad, or they were going to buy it anyway. But I didn't like the idea of these being this fragile. So I went back to my wood shop where I'd been doing the furniture. I said, let me try wood earrings. And I started doing the wood burning tool. And I got very thin wood, and I started cutting it up, and I started making crazy cool patterns and cutting holes in them and burning holes in them. And I should show you guys some of these pieces. I haven't done them in years. And so I started making earrings that way, and they were a huge hit, like the other stuff, but with the added benefit that you could literally throw them at the wall. You could drop them. A lot of times you could step on them, and they were totally A-okay. They would not break, and even better, they were very lightweight. Some of the wood was like paper thin, and so I could make beautiful, long, huge pieces. I should show you some of the photos I have from back then. I would make these big, giant leaf-shaped ones, kind of like this. And I would burn all kinds of fun patterns into them. Maybe I'd burn a tree or, you know, whatever. And then one young lady was like, I want 3 of those on one earring. And I was like, what, 3? Like on top of each other? And she's like, no, I want 3, one right after the other. I said, you're absolutely insane. She said, I will pay you whatever you ask. And I said, okay, you are not insane at all. And I linked 3 of these together. And you think this is big on the paper? It was bigger than this. I'm not joking you. This lovely lady, isn't she lovely? She had these earrings, and it was summertime, and she had like this halter top thing on. And I am not joking you. These earrings came down like this far. Literally, they came down, and I was like, oh my gosh, those earrings are halfway down your shirt. I said, are they heavy? And she's like, no. And she twisted her head left and right, and they swiveled with her. And she said, they're totally cool. They're light. Now, granted, this was it was like paper thin wood. So I believe her. But someone else saw them. They wanted them. I started making more of these. This is insane. Can you believe this? I'm past the 24-minute mark. If you guys are still here, awesome. If you're not, you know, I totally understand. You're probably not listening to this. But anyway, so I made some big crazy earrings for a while. And then I started getting bigger and bigger, and I still wasn't making crazy money, but I was making a little bit better money. And I looked into getting apprentices, and I couldn't really afford to pay them. So then I got interns from college. They got college credit. I got them to help me, and it was awesome. We're all in the wood shop making all kinds of crazy earrings and stuff. And one day I wanted to treat them because they're working for free, even though they're getting college credit. I mean, they were super cool, and I loved how awesome they were helping me, and they were artistic in their own right. So one day I said to my 2 apprentices, there's a guy and a girl, and I said, what would you like me to do for you as a present to say thank you for all your help? First of all, I taught them how to make and sell earrings for themselves, and I encouraged them to use my materials anytime they could, because I couldn't afford to pay them, but I could afford that much. But I said, I want to do something extra. I want to hire a teacher who will teach you something in jewelry or art that I can't teach you. What would you like? And the guy said, I would like a teacher to teach me some wood carving. And I said, awesome. I'm going to find someone. I think I know just the guy. And I had this guy come over, and he sat us, all 3 of us, down. We all got to benefit from this. And I know, very stereotypical. The girl is made of pink Sharpie. But anyway, so the 3 of us sat down, and this teacher came in and showed us the basics of wood carving, like not with power tools, just with like chisels and stuff. And it was super fun. And he would just pick up pieces in the forest and turn them into these beautiful spoons, like wooden spoons that were all organic and with all these knots and beautiful grain in them. And anyway, I haven't even drawn him yet. Here's him. He was kind of a hippie. And he was a super cool dude. And so he taught us that. Okay. And so I made some spoons, and I carved some stuff, and that was fun after that. And the girl said, I want to learn wire wrapping. And I was like, that's super cool. I had a lot of artist friends by this point, and I knew like 2 or 3 that did wire wrapping. And so I found a guy who was willing to teach. And I had this guy come in. This guy was super cool. He's my buddy. He's actually a really cool Philly poet too. But I won't use his name because I haven't talked to him, ask him if it's cool yet. But he taught us some wire wrapping. There's this really famous wire wrapper in Philly who is like also a poet. He was known all around. He was almost like this prophet-y, mystical character who's like every possible way you could think, like stepped out of a movie. And he was really crazy. Well, he had taught this guy. This guy was his apprentice. And this guy had learned all the crazy wire wrapping. So he sat down with us one day and showed us all the basics and showed us some wire wrapping. And I was like, this is super cool. I could do this. And then I had a friend who was going to school for 3D art, and she did a lot of jewelry making, and she taught me some more wire wrapping because I just had that one class from this guy. But she just kind of gave me little tips here and there, and then once in a while I'd watch a little video if I got stuck, and then I pretty much just taught myself from there. And really most of what my style is, if you like it or you don't, I'd say it comes from a bunch of things. It comes from, one, I'm not a jewelry person. I never wore jewelry before this. I never looked at jewelry. I don't think like jewelry. I think in terms of art. I always wanted to be an artist. I always wanted to sell some kind of 3D art, be it furniture, be it vases, whatever. So I approach it that way. Like, I look at something and say, ooh, why not this shape? Why not this? I don't usually look at jewelry already made and try to copy it. I just think of artistic things and think, how can I shrink them down and make them wearable? So that was cool. Or that was helpful in whatever development of style. Number two, I determined that I would make money, I would totally pay my bills. I would make good money at some point. And it took me years, but watch the video on how to sell art. It's literally called How to Sell Art. And I tell, everything I learned. And it took me about 6 years of trial and error. But during those 6 years, I made thousands of pieces. And so that also helped. Just developing, seeing what other people were selling, seeing what was possible. And I really tried to get it down to a system of what I could make that was fast and beautiful. Because anyone, well, not anyone, but a lot of people can sit down for 18 hours and bust out a beautiful piece of jewelry, but then they put 18 hours into it, so they're going to want like $300 for it or more. And I couldn't find those people still with $300 to throw around. My people were in a lower price range, so I had to find a way to make at this point, I make pieces now that are a little higher end, but at this point I was selling to people who only had $5, $10, $15, $20 in their pocket. So I had to make a lot of pieces fast. And I started going to shows where the show entry was expensive. So I had to make a lot of pieces and sell a lot of pieces just to make my money back for what I paid to be in the show. So anyway, 1, 2, 3, not a jewelry person, 6 years, thousands of pieces, just tons of practice. Practice. And trying to combine these two elements of fast and beautiful. Anyone can go fast and, make something simple, and anyone can go slow and take forever and make something really beautiful. But where was the happy medium where it was relatively fast, but still relatively, eye-catching and whatever. So I've talked about me too much, and wow, this is the longest video ever. 33 minutes it's at now. If you're still here, then I salute you, and I apologize for going so long. I also apologize that this art was really, really crazy. Again, I was trying to keep up with my voice, and I talk a lot faster than I draw, so maybe in the future I will do the super cool version with slightly better art, maybe just less worse art. And I will narrate it later. Maybe I'll speed up the camera and then narrate the sped up version, but this is a little more organic for today, and I figured this might be fun. It's fun for me. It might be fun for you. Who knows? In any case, thanks if you got this far. You are awesome. And thank you for watching. Feel free to comment if I left out any parts of the story. I might have went off on tangents, not finished a part. There's, of course, other parts of stories, but this was kind of the meandering way of how I got into doing the stuff some of the stuff you see in other videos now. You guys have a wonderful night, and I'm going to cut this off before it hits 35 minutes. Goodbye.